Let us turn first of all to the 20th chapter of Acts. Acts 20, you remember, is the story of Paul's meeting with the elders of Ephesus down on the beach at Miletus. He's reviewing his past experience with them, how he had led them into the truth, as we would put it, and instructed them and led them along to develop Christian character. In verses 26 and 27, he says, I take you to record this day that I am pure from the blood of all men, for I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of God. If he had shunned to declare all the counsel of God, what is the inference? He would have blood on his garments. He would be guilty of the loss of human souls. It's a tremendous responsibility, dear ones, to accept, to preach or teach the Word of God. I'm sure that many people do not understand at all what's involved. And therefore they wonder why a man says this or that or something else. Well, sometimes it might be a cause of wonder. Why would he say this or that? But if he's God's man giving God's message, then there's some things that are not his choice at all. The counsel of God is not something that originates in human minds and hearts. We human teachers are like the Western Union telegraph boy that comes up to the door and says, telegram from Western Union. It may be a death message. It may be something else, but the messenger boy can't say, oh, well, that'll make them feel bad. I think I'd better not deliver it, or at least I'd better change it a bit before I deliver it so they won't feel so bad. How foolish that would be. How foolish that would be. Notice the 20th verse. I kept back nothing that was profitable unto you. What a testimony. And there are some things this afternoon that frankly I would be tempted to hold back. I just have to be honest with you. But I had better not. And when I say I'm tempted to hold them back, it isn't that I doubt them, not at all. It isn't that I doubt their beauty, not at all. But I know how difficult it is for the human heart to see the beauty. You remember in our first lesson we found, after studying all about how God wants us to be beautiful, have beautiful characters, beautiful countenances, beautiful clothing, beautiful homes, beautiful tables, beautiful manners, beautiful music, beautiful literature, beautiful worship, beautiful witnessing. We found out that when Jesus came down to demonstrate all that, the mass of human beings saw in him what? No beauty that they should desire him. And they kicked him and beat him and spit in his face and led him out to Golgotha and nailed him to a tree and hung him up there and then ridiculed him and made fun of him till he passed away. Broken, heartbroken under the weight of the sins of the world. And to the extent that we have remaining in us any of the natural human disposition, to that extent we shall fail to see the beauty of Christ's perfect way. And so I plead with you, dear ones, oh, pray for whoever attempts to present Christ's beautiful way, that they will not shun to declare the whole counsel of God. Pray for any who seek to do that they may keep back nothing, but let the picture appear in all its beauty. For it takes the whole picture Yes, it does. It takes the whole picture. Now, in Messages to Young People 354 and 355, after quoting 1 Timothy 2, 9 and 10, or rather, 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter, verses 3 and 4, the servant of God says, human reasoning has ever sought to evade or set aside the simple, direct instructions of the Word of God. In every age, a majority of the professed followers of Christ have disregarded those precepts which enjoin self-denial and humility, which require modesty and simplicity of conversation, deportment, and apparel. The result has ever been the same. Departure from the teachings of the gospel leads to the adoption of the fashions, customs, and principles of the world. Now notice, this wasn't just back in the apostolic church. In every age, says the prophet, the majority of the professed followers of Christ have disregarded these counsels on simplicity and humility and modesty, dealing with conversation, deportment, and apparel. As dangerous as is the apostasy in doctrine, which has come again and again in the Christian church, here is something that happens more rapidly and is more subtle, and that is this tending toward the world in the way we talk, the way we dress, the way we live, forgetting the principles of simplicity and modesty. Now notice what happens. It says that departure from the teachings of the gospel leads to the adoption of the fashions, customs, and principles of the world. The presence and power of God, withdrawn from those world-loving circles, are found with a class of humbler worshipers who are willing to obey the teachings of the sacred word. One after another, different denominations have risen, and yielding their simplicity have lost in a great measure their early power. Why did God have to bring the Protestant Reformation? Because the Catholic Church would not allow any real reform within it. Why did God lead the Wesleys later to lead out in a great revival of godliness in England? Because the established Protestant church there was so full of worldliness and formalism. Why did God have to take a simple-hearted farmer like William Miller and lead out in the great Advent movement of 40 to 44 in a movement that separated from the established churches those who were looking for the Lord, October 22nd? Why? Because of this very thing, among others. Now this is the prophet to the remnant church writing, and other references make very clear, friends, that this time God is not going to start a new movement. He's certainly going to have to sift and purge this one to get us back to apostolic simplicity and purity. And so let us, as we study the principles this afternoon, remember that God has undertaken a tremendous program. It is to reform our lives within this movement, not by separating from it. Within the framework of this movement, God is going to purify a people. And then as persecution comes, the chaff is going to be blown out. And those who have come to reflect the image of Jesus fully will remain with the ship and come right on into harbor. And thank God, friends, as Zion is purged from those who trouble her, as the church returns to apostolic purity and simplicity, a multitude in other churches, seeing the apostolic purity and simplicity, will come running into it. What a glorious time the loud cry will be. So let's thank God for these principles. What do you say? Now this chapter that we're dealing with, that we're reading from here in Messages to Young People, is called Simplicity in Dress. But the principle that Sister White presents here can be applied to 100 different subjects. But going on, notice what she says. Pride and extravagance in dress is a sin to which woman is especially prone. Hence the injunction of the apostle relates directly to her. In like manner also that women adorn themselves in modest apparel with shamefacedness and sobriety, not with broided hair or gold or pearls or costly array, but which becometh women professing godliness with good works. That's where she quotes Paul's statement in 1 Timothy 2:9 and 10. But let me meet right at the very beginning of our study the objection to much of what we're going to present this afternoon. It's all summed up in one sentence. If you haven't heard it, you will. But those who believe in dress reform are so sloppy. Now you can substitute other words for that. Untidy, not neat. They don't have any taste. They don't have any good sense. They don't know how to make the clothes. They don't know how to fit them. And some of them are dirty, and some of them are proud of their humility, and so on and on. But you see what I mean, don't you? Now, I want to ask you a question, friends. Does that make it all right for me to disregard God's counsel because somebody that professes to follow dress reform is sloppy? What do you say? Does that give me the right or the license to disregard God's counsel? Doesn't it, on the other hand, lay on me a responsibility to demonstrate a better way? His way? The beautiful way? That's right. So let's meet that challenge. Now, we've already studied that the first law in heaven is what? Order. And so we saw right to start with that all untidiness, all lack of taste, order is out of place. We've covered that ground. But may I give another illustration or two, because this point is so important. It's amazing how the wisdom of the serpent is received by people. And what he says is used as an alibi or an excuse. Let's take it in a different field. Suppose it's the matter of vegetarianism. What would you folks who are here this afternoon say if you heard somebody say, well, I'm not interested in health reform. Look at some of the people that claim to follow it. They're so skinny. For me, I think I'd rather have a few beefsteaks and look like something than to. Now, is that the answer? Is that an answer? Or is that an alibi? Take another one. Oh, I don't think people ought to go around talking about the Sabbath. There's an awful lot of legalism about the Sabbath. Why don't you just preach Christ and everything will take care of itself? And Seventh-day Adventists who preach the law, the law, the law, the law, they ought to just preach Christ and not judge other people on the Sabbath question. Do you know the answer to that? Well, you need to know the answer to all those. And in none of those is the answer to abandon the standards and reforms that God has given this people and water things down to the place where we eventually end up by saying, good God and good devil. I think of that statement where the prophet of God says that the Protestant churches of our land, they've started in by believing good of all evil, and they'll end up by believing evil of all good. That's a tremendous statement, friends, but that's exactly the truth. Great Controversy 571 and 572. False charity has blinded their eyes. They do not see, but that it is right to believe good of all evil, and as the inevitable result, they will finally believe evil of all good. So let's beware of criticizing God's standards because somebody who claims to believe them doesn't carry them out in the nicest way. Let's beware of a false charity that would throw over everything and everybody the mantle of good feeling and miss the real point. Now we'll turn to Revelation 14, 6 and 7 after this little introduction. This book of Revelation, you know, is the revelation of whom? Jesus Christ. It was intended to display Him in all His glory and beauty. And that's what it does. Here is Jesus revealed to the world and to the church, to the world through the church. And it is the purpose of this book of Revelation to develop a people who will reveal Jesus in the flesh down here in this last generation. And the heart of the book is the 14th chapter, the threefold message of verses 6 to 12. Now the sixth, of course, is the angel flying in the midst of heaven with the gospel for all the world. The seventh verse, will you read with me what he says? Saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to Him, for the hour of His judgment is come, and worship Him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. Worship who? Worship the Creator. Worship the one that made. Now, I'd like to have you meditate on this, for this is the heart of our whole study this evening. What does it mean to worship? Well, it includes the idea that we adore Him, doesn't it? But I'm to worship Him as the one that did what? Made. Made what? Heaven, earth, the sea, and the fountains of waters. Would worshiping Him as the one that made all that, would it at least include admiring what He made? Could my worship be full and complete if I didn't like what He made? No, it would have to be partial and not full. If I had to say to Him, Lord, of course, I love You, but really, and I want to say this reverently, I think You've done a poor job at what You created. If I had the chance, I'd do it different. And if anybody thinks that what I'm saying is so silly, we oughtn't to waste time on it. Hold your judgment for about 15 minutes, friend. Well, we're going right into the heart of some things. And all that we're studying is wrapped up in this idea of whether or not we worship the Creator. It's all here in this first angel's message. Worship the Creator. So, let us each ask ourselves, do I worship Him as Creator? Do I worship Him? Do I really admire Him? Do I love what He's made? The beautiful birds, the beautiful flowers. Now, in our study the other day, we took care of the thorns and the brambles and the monstrosities, didn't we? Who did that? An enemy hath done this. So I don't have to kneel down and say, "Oh Lord, I thank Thee for that caw of the crow and that awful croaking of some animals and the harshness and the cruelty that we see in nature." No, we don't have to thank the Lord for any of that. We can throw that back in the devil's teeth where it came from. But every time we see something beautiful and lovely, a gorgeous sunrise, a glorious sunset, the song of the thrush at eventide, we can say, "Oh Lord, I admire You and what You've made. You are beautiful and Your work is beautiful." Is that right? Very well. Now, if I really admire His work, how will I show that? Will I want to change it? Suppose I'd go to the greatest artist in America, whoever he is, and I'd sit there and with ecstasy, I'd say, "Oh, what a marvelous painting." But all the while I was just itching to get hold of a brush, and as soon as I could, I'd get hold of that brush and start using the paint. Could be blue paint, could be red paint, but whatever the color. And I'd start using it. If anybody happened to be around, might they wonder whether I really thought he was such a wonderful painter? How about it? You all see that, don't you? Now, suppose I have a garden, beautiful garden of trees and flowers. But I'm out there with a spray gun, a paint spray gun, and I spray this tree pink, and this tree blue, and this one purple. And my friends come to see me and they say, "Oh, what a garden you have. How did you ever get these trees?" Do I worship the Creator when I answer them? Do I give glory to the one that made when I explain what has happened? Do I? Why, no. I have to say, and probably having a mind like that, I say, "Oh, I did this, and I did that. I thought it would be nice to have something different. So I went down and got me some paint. Now I've got this pink tree and that blue one and this purple one and this one and that one." Marvelous, isn't it? Now, am I worshiping the Creator? No. Because I'm changing what He made. I'm distorting it. I was about to say twisting it. Suppose I should do something like that. Suppose I go out here and I have some calla lilies. Any of you ever seen any calla lilies? Lovely thing. But I'm out there with some tool and I'm putting crimps in those things. And I get through, I call you all to come around and look. Aren't these beautiful flowers? Well, you say they're a bit unusual. What happened? Well, I thought it would be so nice to have some calla lilies with crimps all in them. So I got me this tool that I can crimp them with. Every day I get out here and I crimp them. Put these waves in them. Am I worshiping the Creator? Am I now come? Now I know you smile at the absurdity of my illustration, friends. But do you know there are people that spend their time and their lives changing what God has made? Yeah? Changing. Now, if a man were an evolutionist, I can see how he might think that way. But you and I are creationists. We keep the Sabbath. The very language of this first angel's message is borrowed from what commandment? The fourth commandment. And every time when the sun goes down Friday and we start to keep the Sabbath, we're remembering the one that made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. And we enter into that blessed rest. It is a rest, friends, not to have to be forever trying to change what He made. A blessed rest. I wish everybody could enter into it. He saw everything that He'd made, and behold, it was very good. But somebody says, well, then there's nothing for us to do, is there? Oh, yes. Turn to Genesis, the 2nd chapter, and we'll see there's something for us to do. And it's a beautiful part of the beautiful way to understand this. To understand God's part and our part. And as in many other subjects, we need to know what God's part is and not try to do His part. We need to understand our part and be sure to do it. Genesis, the 2nd chapter, and the 15th verse. First, before we look at that, note verses 8 and 9. What did God do in this beautiful world? He made an especially beautiful garden, particularly for Adam and Eve. And what did He put in that garden? 9th verse. Every tree that is what? Pleasant to the sight. What's one word that says that? Beautiful. Ah, Eden was indeed a crowning demonstration of the beautiful way. Every tree pleasant to the sight and good for food. All right. Now the 15th verse, all together. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. Did Adam have something to do? What was his job? To dress it and to keep it. You know, I read that verse, I think, hundreds of times before I saw something in it. And I thought when I saw it, how simple. Why didn't I see that before? His job was to keep it. To keep it. Now, do you know one of the commandments that talks about keeping? Which one is it? Sabbath, the very one we're talking about. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it. Keep it what? Holy. Yes. Keep it holy. Suppose I say to Jordan here, I want you to be real careful, Jordan, keep that shirt white. Can he do it? No. The doctor here is careful, he can keep his white, but something has to be white before we can keep it white. But keeping means to what? What? To not change it, you say. Is that right? Precisely. And so Adam's job, instead of going around there thinking, well, now there's a green tree, couldn't we make that pink? And here's a straight flower, couldn't we crimp it up? His job was to do what? To find out what God's plan was in every phase of life and to work with God to keep it the way God made it. Is that right? And there was something for man to do. You can read about it there. It's the work of Adam and Eve, it says, to train the vines to make lovely arbors for themselves, where they could sit and talk with the angels. Wasn't that nice? They had various things to do. We'll find out more about it when we get home with the Father, because we're going to be agriculturalists in the earth made new, aren't we? Yes. Now, after sin came in, was there more to do or less to do for man? There was more. 3rd chapter of Genesis, the Lord told them, He said, I'm going to multiply things. And along with multiplying things, there are going to be difficulties. Pain and sorrow, thorns and thistles. But He says it's all for your sake. But as Adam went out to till the ground, his job was still to work with God to find out what God's plan and patterns were, and to dress the garden and what? Keep it. What do you say we accept that assignment? Shall we? That's what it means to worship the Creator. That's intelligent Sabbath keeping. That's an intelligent acceptance of the first angel's message. Now let's go a little farther. He made heaven and earth and all that in the midst. Now, of everything in this earth, friends, what is the noblest work of creation? Man. What is God most interested in then? What is the devil most anxious to distort, to mar, to pervert? Man. Think about this for a moment. Is the matter in man the same kind of matter as far as the inherent properties of it, the same matter that's in a cow or a dog or a horse? Yes. Is it the same elements that are in, we'll say, a cabbage or a bean or... Yes. Same that's in the soil. Is that right? Is it a greater honor, if we can think of matter being honored, to be a part of a living thing than simply a dead mass? If you were an atom of iron, for instance, and could think, if you can get those two ideas together, would you think you'd taken quite a leap if you could get from dead earth to a living blade of grass? But suppose you could leap up from there to the brain of a horse. Would that be quite a leap? But of everything in nature, the noblest work of God is what? Man. Why? For man was made in God's image. That's Genesis 1, 26 and 27. That's what makes man so valuable. Sister White says man is very dear to God because he was made in His image. Oh, I like that statement. Man is very dear to God because he was made in His image. Now, if that's so, then I want to ask you, what is the greatest honor that can come to matter in this world? To be made a part of a man in God's image. Is that right? That's the highest honor it can ever get. That statement that I just quoted is Counsels on Diet and Foods, page 45. Man is very dear to God because he was formed in His own image. Now watch. If the greatest honor that can come to matter is to be made in God's image, what is the greatest honor that I can show to God and the greatest appreciation that I can show to God for making me in His image? Huh? To keep it that way. Is that right? What do you think the greatest insult then a man can hurl at his Creator is? Say, I don't like the way you read. I don't like it. And if I could change it, I could, and if I can change it, I will. Because I don't like it. Romans 9:20. Last part of that verse. Shall the thing formed say to him that formed it, what? Why hast thou made me thus? There it is. And that leads me to the principle of beauty that I want to study this afternoon. Genuine beauty, not counterfeit. Real beauty, not false. Natural beauty, not artificial. That's three different ways of saying the same thing. The genuine, not the counterfeit. The real, not the false. The natural, not the artificial. Child Guidance, page 424. The pure religion of Jesus requires of its followers the simplicity of natural beauty and the polish of natural refinement and elevated purity, rather than the artificial and false. Child Guidance 424. Notice the very words that are used here. Natural beauty rather than what? Than the artificial and false. That's it. Now, let's go back to Revelation. We were over in Genesis. Now we're going back to Revelation. Revelation 18:4. I think you all remember that this 18th chapter of Revelation is dealing with what great message? The loud cry. Revelation 18:4. Will you read together with me the fourth verse? And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people. Just a minute. What's the her? Babylon. Babylon. You see that by the second verse. Now I'll go over to Revelation 18:8. What does it say about Babylon? Revelation 18:8. Look at it. Babylon is what? Revelation 14:8, I'm sorry. Revelation 14:8, Babylon is what? Fallen. And then what else does it say? What's the next? What? Just say it out loud. What does it say after it's fallen? Is fallen. Then what's the next? That great city. All right. What's Babylon? The city. And what does the Lord say in Revelation 18:4 in the loud cry? Come out of her. Come out of what? Babylon, that great city. Now I know this is talking symbolic. I understand that. But God often uses an illustration because the illustration itself is right to the point. Can you think, in the light of what we've studied so far, why God would want to get His people out of the cities, especially the great cities, in these last days? Turn to Ministry of Healing 364. You have this book with you? And here is a wonderful statement. 364. Look at the page and see if you can tell me why God wants to get His people out of the cities. What does it say? Life in the cities is what? False and artificial. That's the very thing we're studying about. Getting away from what? The false and the artificial to what? The natural, the true, the genuine. True beauty, not false. Natural beauty, not artificial. Genuine. That's the thing. All right. 367 of this. Top of the page. Instead of dwelling where only the works of men can be seen, where the sights and sounds frequently suggest thoughts of evil, where turmoil and confusion bring weariness and disquietude, go where you can look upon the works of God. Find rest of spirit in the beauty and quietude and peace of nature. Let the eye rest on the green fields, the groves, and the hills. Look up to the blue sky, unobscured by the city's dust and smoke, and breathe the invigorating air of heaven. Go where, apart from the distractions and dissipations of city life, you can give your children your companionship, where you can teach them to learn of God through His works and train them for lives of integrity and usefulness. Do you see in this the blending of the first angel's message and the second in the loud cry? Come out of Babylon. Get out of the cities. Get out in the country where you can worship the Creator, the one that made heaven and earth. Now, I want to study this with you a little farther, friends. Do you know what's wrong with the cities? Oh, you say, yes, I know what's wrong with the cities. They're so filthy and they're so wicked. But no, it isn't just that. That's bad enough. There's some other things more subtle. Let me show you something. Our whole purpose of this message is to direct the attention of people to whom? The Creator. In His beautiful way of life. But suppose I live in a big city. It's Saturday night, and I want to have a good time. I've worked hard all week, and I've been good all Sabbath. So it's time for me to have some fun. What do? Well, there's two things, folks, that I'm going to do. 99 times out of 100. If I'm city-minded. First, I'm going to go somewhere. And second, I'm going to spend some money. What for? To have a good time. Well, you say, sure. Wouldn't you if you were shut up in a city apartment? All right, let's follow through on it. What is the idea of going somewhere and spending some money? And for the purpose of what I'm talking now, it doesn't make too much difference whether it's a floor where you roll around in slippers or whether you roll around on wheels. Whether it's a theater a moving picture house, a bowling alley, whatever it is. The idea is to get in a car and go somewhere. That costs money, of course, and then spend some money, because the world has been taught through the cities the commercial idea that you take money and spend it to get happiness. Is that a true concept? That is a distorted concept, my friend. It's a perverted concept. And God wants to show us something better. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Let's not judge or condemn the poor people of the cities. I wouldn't for a minute step up to them and grab out of their mouths the bones they're chewing on. Why, no. We learned in our first lesson that the people of this world are worshiping false gods, but they're to be turned from that not by hearing denunciation of their idols, but by beholding something better. Is that why we need sanitariums? That's it. That's why we need Enoch's outposts, where people can, in the language of Jesus, come and see. But my dear ones, if when they come out to the country and see us, they find young people who are panting to get off to the cities to see its sights and hear its sounds, to spend some money so they can have a good time, what does it profit? What does it profit? You know, it's one thing to get out of Babylon, it's another thing to get Babylon out of us. Wouldn't it have been too bad, friends, back there in the days of Abraham, when he had that great outpost out there under the oaks at Mamre? If you had heard him saying to Sarah some Friday, you know, Sarah, some of the young folks, they get pretty bored around here. Life's rather tame. Don't you suppose we ought to arrange to hitch up the chariot Saturday night and take them into Sodom? Just for Saturday night, you know. Just take them into Sodom for Saturday night. Show them a good time. Show them that we're interested in them, that we're thinking about them. Can you imagine Abraham doing that? Do you see something, friends, of what's involved in this matter of beauty as being natural instead of artificial? Genuine instead of counterfeit, true instead of false? But now let's go a little further. I've spoken about the city-minded person wanting to get joy through spending money rather than spending time in the things of nature. You and I, we find joy going over these trails. And if I have this mind, even if I'm through force of circumstances put in a city for a while, you know what I'll do every chance I get? I'll be off to the country, and if I can't, I'll get to a park. What for? To hear the birds, to see the trees and the flowers. That's where I'll find joy. Is that right? But if I'm city-minded, I'll want to go somewhere and spend some money to get some exciting thing. Now let's take it in this matter of beauty. If I'm city-minded, what concept do I find? The idea is just as if I want some joy, I'll take some money and spend it to buy joy. So, I'll take some money and spend it to be what? To be beautiful. To be beautiful. And the beauty industry in America today has come to be a multi-million-dollar program. Now, I'm not discussing at the moment whether it's good or bad or whether it's harmful or otherwise. That can wait for the moment. I'm simply showing you, friends, what the city-minded attitude toward it is. And 1,000 ads every day are blaring and glaring the good news that if you just spend some money, you can be beautiful. Am I correct? Are they correct? I doubt it. Because, friends, 9 out of 10 times and more, I'm being charitable when I say 9 out of 10, what they offer is a distortion, a twist, a marring of the Creator's plan. And have the audacity to want you to submit to it and then pay for it. Yes. That's right. That's what the serpent has done all down the way since the Garden of Eden. Got men to accept his perversions and then have to pay, and oh, how they pay for it. Now let's go to education, page 201. Education 201. Education 201. Turn to it, please, in your book. The last paragraph on that page. Let pupils be impressed with the thought that the body is a temple in which God desires to dwell. What is the body? A temple. God desires to dwell in it. Next sentence. In the study of physiology, we're to see what? Fearfully and wonderfully made. And as the result, we'll be inspired with what? Reverence. Reverence for what? For God. Not that we'll worship the body, but we'll consider the body as sacred as His what? Temple. Now, will you read with me the next sentence? All together. Instead of marring God's handiwork, they will have an ambition to make all that is possible of themselves in order to fulfill the Creator's glorious plan. I wish you'd memorize that. Oh, then, when we see the beauty of this plan, we won't want to mar God's handiwork. We won't want to take the most wonderful thing He made in this world and start twisting it and changing it and distorting it and perverting it. We'll want to find out what His plan is for every human being, and we'll want to carry out that beautiful plan. And as this says, when we look at it that way, the next sentence shows that we won't look upon either health reform or dress reform as a sacrifice. We look upon it what? As a privilege and blessing. And that's what I long to see inspired in every heart. Now turn to 198. Can you see how that paragraph that I just read fits in with worship the Creator? Worship Him that made. The top of 198. Here's our memory verse that we learned from Ecclesiastes. Let's say it together. He hath made everything beautiful in its time. Now note the comment. And true beauty will be secured not in marring God's work, but in coming into harmony with the laws of Him who created all things and who finds pleasure in their beauty and perfection. What is it that beauty will not be found in? In marring God's work. But if it's wrapped up in a package and labeled a beauty treatment, and yet it mars, what about it? Then it's false, not true. It's counterfeit, not genuine. It's artificial, not natural. Exactly. All right. Now go to Ministry of Healing 292. Anything that mars, anything that perverts, that isn't the thing for us. Now notice that last sentence on 292. We looked at it the other day, but we're looking at it today on this point of natural beauty instead of the artificial, true instead of false. Altogether, God is the author of all beauty, and only as we conform to His ideal shall we approach the standard of true beauty. Now notice the sentence before that. The correct model for physical development. I wonder what the model is. It says it's to be found not in the figures displayed by French modistes, that's the dressmakers, but in the human form as developed according to the laws of God in nature. Then does God allow Paris to decide what's beautiful? No, He's decided that. It's natural, not artificial. That paragraph will help you. Now, I passed around at the beginning of the class some pictures from Africa. How many of you have seen those? Is there anybody that hasn't? Will you raise your hands? Will those who have them pass them up here? Bring them up here, Kenneth. And pass extended lips. Notice the lady with the extended lips. There should be 3 or 4 pictures. Can we have them up here in front? See that her lips stick out quite a ways in front. How did she get that way? Why, when she was young, they made a slit in her lower lip and one in her upper lip and put in a piece of wood, and they kept getting that bigger, bigger, bigger until finally her 2 lips stick way out. You see, that's a horrible thing. Why is she doing it? To be beautiful by the standards of her tribe. Aren't you glad you don't live in Africa? We wouldn't do anything like that here, would we? No, not quite anyway. Now you notice that other picture? There's not the lip is pierced, but the ear. And there's an ear with a great big piece of wood in it. How did that start? Well, they made a hole and put a little one in. Is that marring? Is it true beauty? No. You all see that very easily, don't you? How would you help the Christian who had accepted Christianity over there in Africa, who would say to you, yes, brother, sister, but everybody does it in our tribe. It's the accepted thing, and I would be so peculiar if I didn't fix my lips that way, or if I didn't fix my ears that way. In fact, I'm afraid that it would spoil my influence. I think I could help people to accept the gospel better if I fixed my lips up like that. What would you say? All right. Now, did you notice the other picture of the woman with the hairdress? You all see that one? It's important that you see it. There she has her hair worked up into a great arrangement. The folks that have been over there tell me that they use combinations of various things like red clay, rancid butter, even cow dung, all mixed together to work into it. You see, they don't have the advantages of some of these commercial channels to get materials, so they use what they have. But now look at that, friends. Do you think her hairdress is any way that God made her? Do you? Does it look beautiful to you? And yet if you see the expression on her face, you can see she's quite pleased with herself. And doubtless the young men of her tribe look at her and feel she's the belle of the tribe. She meets their standards. She's accepted. That's what counts. If you were the minister or Bible worker getting her ready for baptism, what would you say to her? Or would you say anything? And what would you say if she happened to have some clippings from some of the latest news magazines in America? What goes on over here in the way of hairdressing? What would you say if, as an enlightened savage, she would say, what's the difference between what we do in Africa and what's done over here? Now, while you're thinking about that, I want to pick up an American paper. This is an American Negro newspaper, published in Pittsburgh. And here are some ads. Lighter, clearer, younger looking skin. Pardon me while I read another ad here. Excuse me for reading it, but I know no other way for you to get the picture. Notice the appeal. And don't just smile, think. Think, what would you do if you were a Negro person? Be the light of his life with lighter, brighter skin. Watch the love light glow in his eyes when he sees your new radiant beauty. Begin now to have lighter, smoother, softer looking skin. Use such and such bleaching cream. Modern science knows no faster method of lightening skin. See your complexion take on a new beauty glow. Now, girls, if you happen to be born a colored person, would you order that bleaching compound, put it on? What about it? Well, I tell you, whether you can find out what you do if you just be honest. Now I'm going to go to the other side of it. This is the same paper, just happens to be on the next page. There's another ad, advertising another beauty product. Straighter, longer hair appearance. Get a certain kind of hairdresser. Now, I didn't misread that. That's what it said. Straighter, longer hair appearance. The appearance is in very small type. Words straighter and longer are there. You say, why would they want straighter hair? Indeed, why? Why would they? Can you figure that one out? Yeah. For a number of years I labored in New Orleans, held evangelistic meetings there. I was interested in the difference between the ads for the colored beauty shops and the white beauty shops. You know what was happening in the colored beauty shops? They were making curly hair straight. And in the white beauty shops, they were making straight hair curly. Wonderful, isn't it? Wonderful. I wonder which one God is most interested in.